deal with bulk data. Now the next part, once I have put data inside my system, the next important thing for us becomes the security and access controls. Okay. So for security and access, there are a few things which you need to consider. First level of security is you want to make sure that someone who does not have the access to log in into Salesforce or to log in into your organization's Salesforce account should not be able to log in, right? Because this is on cloud, security always is a big issue for companies, or a big concern, not issue as such, but a big concern for any company which puts its data on Salesforce, right? Because it's on cloud, right? Now the companies do have that feeling that anyone can log in from anywhere, and there can be a password leak, and from there can be a data theft or something like that. Now there are a few aspects of the security which we are going to talk about. So first thing that we will be talking on this is security and identity confirmation. Okay, so security and identity confirmation is where we talk about how does Salesforce identify whether the person who is logging in is the correct person or not. So what are the methods it uses? So from the Salesforce side. So this happens when we are trying to log in into the system. Like, so we have Salesforce provides us two ways of restricting the login thing. One, it allows us to put a restriction on login time. Second is the IP address. So Salesforce allows you to put restrictions on this. So for example, we all are running a company and we started putting our data on Salesforce. Now we are concerned that there will be two concerns. First concern is if someone who is not a part of the company, he gets our login ID password and he then starts using our data or looks into our data. That is one concern, point one. Second concern is people who are already in the company. Let's say we all are working in the company. So people who are already there in the company, if they log in, intentionally, unintentionally, but if they log in at a certain time from a certain place, which they should not be doing, then that is also a concern, right? For company, the employees are also the ones who know the security, the password and login, right? And the company does not want these employees to go and log in into Salesforce outside the company. Sometimes you would not want the employees. Let's say your employees logging in into your Salesforce account from a cyber cafe, and the password gets hacked. So that will be a bit of challenge, right? So two concerns are there for any company. First is that the employees, and second is external people. Okay. So Salesforce allows you to put these two restrictions. Login time, you can restrict the login time. Okay, what all time users will be able to log in. So you can say that okay, user should be able to log in from 9 to 6 or 9 to 5. Then what will happen? The user will not be allowed to log in beyond that. Before 9 they cannot log in, after 5 they cannot log in. That thing can be done. And it also allows you to restrict the users to certain IP addresses. Restricting the users to IP addresses means I just allow the IP addresses of my office, so that anyone who is trying to log in from home or from a cyber cafe cannot log in. Got that thing? So that is the other restriction that can be put. Alright. So I would want you to understand the process, how Salesforce starts doing the security check when you try to log in into it. Okay. So when a user, and both of these things, login time and IP address, none of them is required, none of them is mandatory, both of them are optional. So this is optional, this is also optional. Depends on the business requirement. If they feel that they need to restrict their users to the time, they can do that. That is available as an option, it's not mandatory. If they feel they need to restrict their users with certain IP addresses, they can do it, but it's again optional, not mandatory. Okay. So the security and identity confirmation is the process of Salesforce identifying the correct user, okay, and how this process works. So it's pretty straightforward thing. So you make a login attempt. First thing that Salesforce does is it performs a login time check. Okay, so this is the first thing that it does. Whenever a user is trying to log in, it will go and check salesforce.com, checks whether that user is allowed to log in at that time or not. Okay, if he is allowed, then Salesforce will go to the next step. If he is not allowed to log in at that step, then Salesforce will simply say access denied. Okay, so here either access will be denied or he will get into the next step. Okay, so if the time check fails, then your access will be denied. If you are trying to log in within the time which is permitted for you, then you will be taken to the next step, which is IP check. So then it performs the IP check. Then it starts checking whether you are logging from the right IP address or not. Okay. If you are trying to log in from the right IP address, then your login will be allowed. However, if you are trying to log in from a wrong IP address, then Salesforce will perform one more check, which is a cookies check. What is this cookies check? In cookies, it will go and check. Cookies means internet browsing history. So Salesforce.com will go and check on the internet browsing history of the computer whether you have logged in from that computer earlier or not. Okay, and if that is there in the browsing history. Okay, for example, I work for a certain company and I am trying to log in from my home. So my home IP address is not allowed by the company. So in that case, Salesforce will check whether I have logged in from my computer earlier or not, and if that information is available in the browsing history or not. Okay, so that cookies check will happen. Once this cookies check has happened, the next thing will be, if the cookies check is cleared, login will get allowed. If that also fails, then Salesforce gives you another option, which is of the verification code. So it says that receive the verification code on your email or on the registered phone, registered email or registered phone, and activate the computer. Okay, so that is the other option. Alright, so this is how this process works. So if you are trying to log in at a time which you are not allowed to, then straight away your access will be denied. So there is no second chance for that. But if you clear that login time check, then you move into the IP check, the Salesforce, and all these things will happen in the backend. I mean, it will not tell you that I am now doing IP check and all that stuff. So we are never told about that. You have been logging into Salesforce for all these days. It never told you what is happening, but it performs all these checks, right? So the most important is the time restriction. If someone is trying to log in at a time which he is not allowed to do, he will be not allowed to log in at that time. Okay. If
Sir,
yeah, just 1 minute.
sir,
1 minute.
sure.
Just finish. Yeah. So if that time restriction you overcome, then it goes into the IP check. Okay. IP check, even if you are not logging in from the defined IPs, it still gives you two more options. What are the other options? One is it will go and check if you have logged in from that particular computer. If it finds that, okay, this user logged in from this computer earlier, then it will still consider. And if it still does not find that, then it will ask for a verification code that, okay, because you're logging in from this particular IP address which is not in your trusted IP range, and you are logging in from here for the first time, you need to activate this computer. So there is this activation code that we receive, right? Bhargav is using, I mean, he created his developer edition, right? Now, I think yesterday's session or day before yesterday, he gave me his login ID and password so that I can log in from my computer. The moment he gave me that, I was asked to get the verification code. Okay. The reason is pretty simple. The developer edition that he created was somewhere else, and now I'm trying to log in from a different location. Okay. So by default, Salesforce understand that, okay, fine, this login was created somewhere else, and this seems to be a new computer, new IP address. So it asks me for verification code. Okay. That was day before yesterday. Yesterday when I tried logging into Bhargav's account, at that time it did not ask me for verification code. The reason is because it could find that information in my cookies, in the internet browsing history. Day before yesterday I logged in, right? So now again, if I log into Bhargav's account, it will again go and find, until and unless I do not clear my browsing history, it will find this information in the cookies, and it will simply let me log in into that. But now if I try to log in into Nikhil's account, which if I have not done earlier, then again it will ask me for verification code. Got that thing? So whenever you are logging in on a computer onto your Salesforce account from a new computer which you have not used earlier to log in, it will ask you for verification code, or that computer should be included in your company's defined IP addresses. Okay, got that? Yeah, someone was asking some question.
Yes, sir. I have now two questions quickly, sir. So when the access is denied, right? Can we log the timestamp and also the IP address from where they were trying to log in?
Sorry, I could not understand your question. So you are saying access is denied after the login time check. Yeah. After that, what is the question?
Yeah, exactly. When access is denied, can you get the timestamp and the IP address from where they tried to log in? That is my question one. And the question two is on the mobile side, because Salesforce, I downloaded the Salesforce app, mobile app as well. On the mobile app, there is nothing like cookies or anything, right? These two are the questions.
Yeah. So first thing, you will not get that timestamp or IP address from where they tried to log in. So till the time the person does not log in, Salesforce does not keep a track of. If you have logged in, then definitely that comes into an audit that this person logged in from here, right? With the mobile app, this cookies check option is definitely not there, but the login time thing works, pretty good in the mobile app login also, right? We have cookies in mobile also. I mean, I think that we have. No?
I think we have that too. No, we have that too.
Yeah, I think browsing history is there in mobile, because if you look into your mobile, if you have opened like 40, 50 pages and all that stuff, those information is stored there. So nowadays that browsing history information is there in mobiles also, right?
No, apps, actual app which we are talking about, like from your iStore we download a Salesforce app, right?
Salesforce
application.
Right. Yeah. So we are talking about that app only. So that app will actually once you have logged in onto that particular mobile from that mobile for the first time, it will ask you for the verification thing, and after that it recognizes that device. So it's basically about activating the device for you. That is how it is.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thanks, sir. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
And then Ravali has a question. So cookies check is nothing but the browser history. Yes, absolutely correct. So whatever your browsing history, if there is something in the browsing history which tells Salesforce that this guy has already logged in from this computer, then absolutely fine. Then it allows. Now, one quick question to all of you. We see that there are two restrictions that we were talking about, right? One restriction was on the time, the other one was on IP address. Don't you see that there is a bit of partiality that it is doing, for the time restriction, it straight away denies access. For other IP address restriction, it's so lenient, right? it gives you a second option, cookies check, it gives you a third option,
Yeah.
verification code. Why do you think it is so? What do you think is the reason for that?
Because the office is no longer there after then. The call center is closed. Uh,
But why is it doing so nice in terms of IP address? Why does it give 2, 3 more options? Login time, it's straight away denies access, absolutely fine, understandable. But can we think of why IP address is, they are not being so strict on the IP address part?
Because and one option could be if prime criteria matches. There is a possibility that a user might be accessing to some other computer within the office premises.
Yes. So within the office premises, or so what Arpan is saying is very close to the actual fact. So for time, once your call center has got closed, or once your sales team should not be calling, after that you definitely do not want anyone to call, okay, or look into the data. But for the IP thing, sometimes people will have that requirement. I mean, you cannot restrict entire thing into that office IP address. Sometimes people will need to go out and work. They will need to log in from client location. They will need to log in from maybe some other office. They will need to log in from home. That is the advantage. That is the USP of Salesforce, right? It's not on premise, it is on cloud. So if they make it very strict on the IP address, then what will happen? It will be, it will become as good as in-house server. Then what is the advantage of the cloud-based server that you can log in from anywhere and all that stuff, right? So for that reason, they have adopted hybrid kind of an approach here, a bit of security and a bit of options. So if you are not within the IP defined IP range, you still have an option to log in, but through some security steps, right? So get the activation code, make sure that the right person is logging in, and that is how it is. Clear? All right. So this is one thing. The other part is once the person has logged in, okay, how to put this login time and IP address restriction, I will show you. Okay, we'll come to that part. Before that, I need to talk about some other topics also. So this is one part. So this is basically for the person to log in. Before someone logs in, these are the restrictions. Okay, so that we can understand. So the second point that we're going to talk here is once the people have logged in. Once you were allowed to log in, let's say we all could log in into the system. Now, do you think everyone will need access to everything?
Not at all. We spoke in the first class.
Right. So everyone does not need access to everything, right? So basically, people, in the sales team, let's say, we are talking about a sales team and an HR team. So people in the sales team really need to see the data of the HR team. Correct? Same time, people in the HR team do not need to see the data of the customer support team. Now what cases the customer support guy is working on, the sales team should not be able to see that. Okay? So that is one more thing which we need to deal with. So who will have what level of access? Okay. So earlier, basically, what Nikhil was saying earlier, what we were talking about, that was basically everyone does not need, all people in the company do not need same level of access or same permissions. Okay. All the functionalities. That is one thing. Here, my concern is that everyone should not access all the data. Correct. So there can be a lot of restrictions. For example, I have. So here I am talking about permissions. Who has what level of permission? How do we control the permissions? So for example, I have 3 apps. One is sales, one is customer support, and one is let's say the marketing or HR. Okay. Now Ravali is working in HR team. She will access the HR app. Ravi Teja is in customer support. and Sambit is in sales. Now the point is that when I have these people here, now company would definitely would not want Sambit, who is a part of sales team, to look into the HR things, right? Usually this is how it works, right? Someone who is a part of HR team should only get to see HR data. Now, a person from sales team should not see that data. The same way, Ravali should not see client's information because she is not in the sales. She's just got to do with the HR thing. So it's good from two, from two perspectives. First perspective is, if she gets to see limited things related to HR, the user interface will be clean for us, will be clean for her. She can look into specific things which she needs to access, and things will be organized. If we dump everything on a user's interface, the sales app, customer service, HR, all the apps, the end user will get confused, right? So he will have a very confusing kind of an interface where he actually struggles to find which app where to click and all that stuff. So it's always good to give minimum or limited access, whatever is required thing. So from that point of view, we are going to give Ravali only the HR app so that she can deal with it. Second point is the security perspective, also data security perspective, right? More we expose our data to the entire company, more security concerns increase, right? So who is logging in, who is looking into all the data, the client's data, the opportunities that I am getting, who is my competitor, who is not my competitor. I do not want my HR people to see that. Okay, which all customers are complaining about me, I don't want Sambit to see that. So that is how it is, got it? So this is one thing. Similarly, we can have other issues also, or we can have a few other requirements, something like for example, Sambit and Arpan. These are two people in the sales team. Okay. So sometimes it may happen that while both of them are in the sales team, within the sales team also, I do not want Arpan to see Sambit's data in the sales team. Say, let's say Sambit deals with 100 clients and Arpan also deals with 100 clients. Okay. Now, because of the privacy, business security, or to reduce the conflict between these two salespeople, both of them are the champion salespeople, and because of these reasons, I do not want Sambit to look into Arpan's accounts. He deals with his 100 accounts. I just want him to see his 100 accounts, and this guy should see 100 accounts. So overall, my sales application may have. I'm just taking an example of accounts. It can be anything. Overall, my sales app can have 200 accounts, but there also I want both of them have access to accounts, but I want to restrict the data for each and individual user. So Sambit, he should only get to see the 100 accounts that he deals with, and this person, Arpan, should only get to see the other 100 accounts that he deals with. Fine, this is again one important thing. So permissions need to be controlled at every stage. So that is what we are basically going to talk about, right? So these permissions which we are talking about need to be controlled at every stage. So you might need to have certain applications visible to certain users and not visible to certain users. You might need to have certain objects available to some users and not available to some others. You might want to control the visibility of the tabs for certain users. Let's say there is a certain group of users who should not have access to the opportunities tab. There is a certain group of users who should not have access to the opportunities data. There is a certain group of users who should not have access to edit the opportunity. Okay, some people will have again read-write access. Some people are allowed to delete data. Some users should not have that delete permission. Some users should not have create permission, right? Let's say we have Nikhil who has joined new in the sales team. Okay, he can see accounts but he cannot create or delete accounts. However, Sambit and Arpan, they are in the sales team but they can view and delete or create everything. So it depends, right? So what sort of requirement I have, based on that requirement I'm going to give the permission. So this has become an internal user permission control thing. Okay. So for permission, we have two things. Okay. So for controlling permissions, we have a couple of things here. One is called a profile. Okay. Second is called a permission set. Okay. So we'll start with profile first. I'll come to permission set later. We'll talk about profile first. What is a profile? Profile is collection of permissions. What is profile? It's a collection of permissions. So you create a profile, you put certain permissions inside that profile, and you give that profile to a user. Correct? So this collection of permissions, when given to a user, that user gets all the permissions from the profile. Clear? So usually what we do, we create a profile for a group of users, and then we give it to that particular group of users. Alright, so we assign that profile to multiple users. Okay. So user to profile is a one-to-many. One profile can be given to many users. Got it? But it's not the other way around. One user cannot have multiple profiles. One profile can be given to multiple users. That is something which can be done. Let's say I create a profile for sales users. Okay, and all the people in the sales team, let's say Sandeep, and then we have Nikhil, then we have Arpan, whoever is there a part of sales team, I will give the same profile to all of them. Okay. Now what happens? Whatever permissions are there in the profile, all those permissions will be available to these users under that profile. Okay, the users who have got that profile. Got it? So if you're dealing with hundreds of users, and you need to create a sales profile for 20 users, so you don't need to go and individually define permissions for each and every individual user. Create a profile, assign that profile to all those 20 users. As simple as that. Nothing else needs to be done. Alright? Okay. Now what all things are covered, controlled in the profile? What permissions are controlled in the profile? Apps. What all apps the user will get to see? That is controlled on profile. What objects the user will get to see? That's controlled on the profile. What fields the user will get to see or edit? That depends on the profile. Apart from this, what tabs the user will get to see? That also depends on the profile. Alright. Login time. Remember the login time thing? What time the user will be able to log in and what time he cannot log in, that also depends on the profile. So we do not define it for the entire organization, we define it for the profile. So you can say that sales users will be able to log in only from morning 9 till evening 4. There is some other profile, for them you can have a different time slot defined, right? And IP range is also defined for profile. Okay, so these all things are controlled on the profile. Apps, objects, fields, tabs, login time, IP range. Okay, so this is what is controlled through profile. So these all things depend on your profile. Now as a user, which all apps you will get to see, that depends on what all have been allowed on your profile. Which all tabs you will see, that depends on the profile. Objects, fields, what time you can log in, that also is defined on the profile. Okay, so let's quickly look into the profile thing once. Let's have a look on the Salesforce interface, where exactly we find profile and how does it look. Bhargav, can you please share the password?
One second.
Yep, sure.
You want the user ID too?
I just need the password, yeah. No, login ID I don't need it. I think we have it. think I need the login ID as well. It's not stored in the system. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so on Salesforce, if you click on the setup, under setup you have an option called manage users. So this is where everything related to managing users will be done. If you click on users, you will find a list of all the available users, which all users are available and everything that will be listed here, right? So right now we just have one user, Hargav. There can be more users. And if you see for this user, there's a profile assigned to him, which is system administrator. So by default, this person has a system administrator profile. Okay. So the permissions are actually contained in this profile. There is no permission which is directly given to the user. Permissions are given to the profile. Now the profile that this user has, he gets permissions from the profile. Simple. Okay. So for profile, now the other question that you might be asking is, or might be thinking of is, whether we get ready-made profiles from Salesforce or do we create our own profiles? Okay. So the answer is that we do have both options. The ones which are provided by Salesforce are called standard profiles, and the ones that we create are called custom profiles. So there are standard profiles and then there are custom profiles. Okay. So what's a standard profile? Standard profile is something which has been provided by Salesforce. Custom profile is something that I would create, okay, as per my requirement. So under the same manage users, you will see this profile thing here. Go to setup, manage users, profiles. The moment you click on profile, you will see there is a long list of standard profiles which is available there. Got it? Solution manager, marketing user, identity user. So don't go by the name, these are just profiles and they have some permissions inside them. Let me just see what all permissions this marketing user has. Click on this profile. See, if you click on that and click on edit, see, it shows you what all apps are visible. So all the apps are listed here. What all apps are visible to this profile, what all tabs are visible to this profile, which all tabs are visible, which tabs are not visible. Okay, like the forecast tab is hidden from the marketing user, and the sales user, it is there. Okay, so that way. Then these are few generic permissions. Then object permissions, which all objects this user can see, where he can read the data, where he can create the data, if he can edit data on certain object, whether he can delete data on certain object. So everything is there. Alright. So marketing user does not have access to these objects like this coaching and all these things. Feedback, this access he does not have. Correct. There are a few additional permissions or things which can be controlled for that particular profile, like in how many days the password will expire. Okay. So enforce how password history, how many old passwords will be remembered. So some password policies also can be defined for that profile. Got it? So entire collection of permissions, what the user can do with their profile and not, everything is defined in this profile. Okay, so as I showed you here, which all apps, which objects, which fields, which tabs, everything is a part of the profile. Got it? So that is one thing. Now the current user is using a profile system administrator. Alright. So let me search for system administrator profile. Where is that profile? So if I don't want, my current user is Bhargav. Okay, let's say I don't want Bhargav to see marketing app. I don't want him to see marketing app. Then what I will need to do? I'll need to go to his profile. So what is his profile? System administrator. So it's on the next page. Go to the system administrator profile. Click on edit. And remove the visibility of marketing app. See, now marketing is not visible to the system administrator. So I would not go do it for a particular user. I'm just doing it for profile, which in other words means that other people who are using the profile, they will also get affected. So that is something which will happen. So if along with Bhargav, if there is someone else, Ravi Teja, who is also using the same profile, he will also not have access to marketing, because I am turning it off not for an individual user, I am turning it off for the profile. Okay. I'll just click on save. See, is there a marketing app available here? No, because that was turned off on the profile. Got this thing? So this way, whatever changes are made in the profile, those will be applicable to the users who are using that profile, right? So depending on our requirements, when you basically when you work for a company, you will see that okay, then there are different groups of people. There will be a marketing team, there will be a sales team. Let's take just the CRM example. Let's not get into HR and all that stuff. So for CRM also there will be like 3 teams. Okay. So one is the sales, the other is marketing, the third one is the customer support team, right? Now depending on whatever requirement the sales team has, you can create a profile for sales team, and then you can create a profile for the marketing team, and then you can create a profile for the support team, right? And define what things they need to have. Like customer support team, they need to view the cases and they need to view the solutions. For sales team, you don't want them to see cases, absolutely fine. Or if you want them to see cases, that is also fine, right? So that is how we are going to control things. Okay. So that's about the profile. So profile is mandatory. Every user in Salesforce needs to have a profile. So you cannot create a user without a profile. User needs to have a profile, something or the other. Like your mobile phone has a base plan, right? You cannot, your mobile will not be operational till the time you do not have a base plan. Some sort of plan should be there in that mobile which we are using, right? So that base plan has to be there. And profile actually acts as the base plan. Okay. Now, other concept that we need to understand here is a permission set. So profile we have understood. Now think of a scenario. If I have a sales team and I have 5 people in the sales team. Let's say I have a sales team, 5 people in the sales team. Everyone needs same permission, same access. I created a profile for all 5 of them. Alright. Now out of those 5 people, there is one person who needs some extra permissions. Only one guy. He needs a few extra permissions. Let's say he needs to access one tab from the marketing app. Okay. How will we deal with that? What the requirement? 5 people, same profile they are using. Permission and everything is whatever is required is same. For some reason, the company is putting one person from the sales team to do some additional activities on the marketing app. Okay. Now this one guy needs additional permission. He needs all the permissions of the sales app which he has. That's there. But he needs some additional permissions for the from the marketing app also. Now this is an exception.
Create a new profile.
Okay, if we create a new profile, that's a good solution, but the problem is that you will end up creating too many profiles like this, because a lot of times you will have people who have 1 or 2 extra requirements, right? So if we create profiles for every such requirement, then we will end up having too many profiles. Got it? So this is where we are not going to create a new profile. What we are going to do, we are just going to use a permission set. So what is this permission set? It is like a add-on. Okay.
It's like Google Drive.
Permission sets. No. Why Google Drive?
No, I mean like giving the permissions. Like if I need an extra permission, if I'm say sharing a video to someone, I can only schedule a permission to him, and then if he is forwarding that same
Maybe.
file to someone else, he can't even access the file, right? So like maybe I'm sending a file to Jeet, and then Jeet is forwarding that same file to Arpan or someone else. Arpan can't even access the file.
Right, but
Because I have set up the consider permissions only to Jeet and someone else in my system.
that's something similar to that. But I think okay. So let's just keep it this way, that base permissions we get from our profile, right? Any additional permission which I only need and others do not need. Basically, if you go and put that permission in the profile, then what will happen? All 5 of them will have access. If we create one additional profile, then you end up creating too many profiles, and it becomes difficult for you to manage. And on top of that, this requirement for this one user can be a temporary requirement for 2 weeks. So will I go and create a profile for 2 weeks, and after that again I will delete that profile and put this guy back? So in that case, what you can do is you can just use a permission set. So it's like you are already using a certain calling plan, and you just use an add-on for making ISD calls, something like that. So requirement based. So permission set is also collection of permissions, but it is used as an add-on feature on top of the profile. So permission set is optional. This is optional. User may or may not have a permission set. Okay. And user and permission sets are many to many. Which means one user can have multiple permission sets, and the same permission set can be given to multiple users. Like we had user and profile one to many. One user can have only one profile, but for permission set it's not the case. The same user can have multiple permission sets. Okay. So now today Nikhil came up with a requirement that I have a sales profile, but my manager is asking me to work on marketing campaigns. I need a permission of campaigns. I am the administrator. I can create a permission set for campaigns and give it to Nikhil. So he has additional permissions along with whatever he gets access through his profile. He will also have that option to access the campaigns. That is one thing.
Sir, when do they take a decision to create that as a profile if there are coming more and more requests? Hello, sir.
Yeah. Tell me again. Create what as a profile?
We create that as a profile when we get more such requests, right? I mean, when the business is sending that request again and again and again, then we probably create it as a profile, right? For example,
additional profile is what you're talking about.
Exactly, sir. Like for one time we may probably do this. For second time we will do this. But if it is coming like 15 or 16 times, then we probably create a custom profile for that, right?
Yeah. So if you see that there is a big group of users who need it, and that is constant. Again, more than multiple requirements. Is it a constant requirement? Is it something which is going to help? If it's like even if it comes constantly, but it is a requirement for 1 week, then you already have a permission set created. You can just keep on giving the same permission set to all those users and revoke it when their job is done. Not that. But definitely, if you see that okay, constantly they need it, and there is a certain group of users, out of 100 people, there are 50 who need that sort of permissions, and 50 others need that sort of permission, then that is not an exception, right? Then you definitely have to create 2 profiles. So permission set is basically for handling exceptions, 1, 2 users at a time, that's fine. But yeah, if you definitely have a bigger group who requires the same kind of things, then maybe create a profile makes things easier for you. That,
Gotcha. Sir, last question. The profile naming convention, what is the naming convention? Like, is it every campus, like, every different company will have a different naming convention, or else do they follow generally any naming convention?
no, there is no such naming convention, which is followed. So you can name the way you want. You can call your, HR team profile as HR profile. You can call it HR team profile or HR only. So whatever you want to name, you can name it. Fine. So there is nothing which is followed that way. And not, that companies do have requirement of, different profiles, right? Some company will create profiles based on the department. Some companies will create profiles based on some other criteria. Maybe the management people. For management people, they will create a profile. They will create a profile for all the C-level executives. So depends on the requirement, right? So you as an administrator would decide that, okay, fine, these are the group of users which I can create, and this is the kind of permission required, and then you create a profile and name it whatever you want.
Sir, previously I used to use a tool where I could request for a role in Salesforce. Do we have that option? I was an end user.
Yeah, we have a role, but I do not know what was your previous tool's role. But we have a role concept here. We'll discuss about that, and then you can understand whether it's similar to that previous tool or not. But there is a role concept here. Okay. So, but we'll go into role thing later. Are we clear on the profile and permission set? We have understood this thing. So simple logic.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. So simple logic. First thing, have profiles. Give the profiles to the users. 95% of the cases, you will be able to manage all your users' permissions from profiles. Okay. 5% cases, you will need certain exceptions for some of the users who need some extra permission, which others in the profile do not need. In that case, you should deal it with a permission set. Okay. So that's one thing. Now let's quickly understand how to create a permission set. So under the same manage users, there is an option called permission set. You can go to permission sets. You can click on new. So you do not have any permission sets by default. The way we had profile, I told you profile is mandatory. So that for that reason, they by default give you certain standard profiles. Permission set is something which you don't require every day and all, right? A lot of companies, manage their things without even a single permission set. But if you have to create a permission set, you just go to setup, manage users, permission sets, click on new, and then give a label and name for the permission set. You can call it. Then click on save. So permission set is created. Now whatever permissions you want to put inside that, you can select here. Okay. So what all apps you want to assign, all the permissions are available here, right? So if you want to give a special permission for a certain app, you can do that. So in this permission set, let's say I am putting a permission of viewing marketing app. So if I give this permission set to a user whose profile does not allow him to see marketing app, he'll still able to see the marketing app. Okay. Let me just save it. So this way you can put the permissions in the permission set. So permission set becomes like an envelope where you put in the permissions, and then you can give that envelope to whoever you want. Now permission set is ready. How do we give the permission set to a user? You can go to a certain user, click on that user's name, scroll down a little, and you will have the option. So just go to the user, open the user details, and you will have an option of permission set assignment. Here you can click on edit assignments and give the permission set to the user. Alright, so that is it. the permission set, click on save, that's it, done. Clear? So this is how, I mean, if you had multiple permission sets, you could have given multiple permission sets to the same user. Depends, right? So that is how it works. All right. So we are going to talk further on this. There are a couple of more concepts which we need to talk on this. So I'll continue our discussion from here in tomorrow.